And a very happy Thursday to you at 12:06 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, at his final State of the State address, Gavin Newsom talked the high-speed rail as a win.
We're also laying tracks. Laying tracks, the nation's first high-speed rail system.
Isn't the Vegas one going to be finished first?
I'm telling you, we're living in an alternate reality.
You want to do well in the future, you got to invest in the future.
Yeah, we invested in that thing almost 20 years ago.
When was it supposed to be fully completed by?
2020.
We want a 21st century transportation network.
Actually, that's 20th century technology.
Full environmental clearance is done. We built over 50 major structures. More than 60 miles of guideway have been completed, ready for immediate track lane in the Central Valley. 2,270 parcels and right-of-way have been procured.
And no train.
No one has been able to buy a ticket on the train. No one has been able to use the train. It's a win because he's funneling money to the unions and presumably whoever it is that owns that land that the state bought it from.
And that's why Gavin got this applause on high-speed rail.
I'm telling you, we live in a place where we know that the fire aid money is stolen, and they say, oh, no, the fact checkers all say that's not true. That money's going to where it's supposed to go.
Well, the fine line there is, no, they always said it was supposed to go to the nonprofits. They never said it was going to go directly to fire victims. You just assumed.
We complain about the high-speed rail. They, oh, no. That's a smashing success, and anyone who says otherwise is lying to you.
It's an economic engine, just not a real engine.
Unreal. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, it is a very busy news day, so we have an action-packed show for you. But we're going to start out with the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, going after fire victims on the one-year anniversary of the fires that took out Altadena and Pacific Palisades, where she gave a local interview where she said that the fire victims don't know what they're talking about, and they're spreading misinformation. And people are spreading misinformation to the fire victims, and the fire victims are buying into it.
This is what Karen Bass had to say to ABC 7's Josh Haskell the day before yesterday.
1 year after the fires, are you surprised that so much of that anger is directed at you?
A little.
Oh, come on.
But again, I do understand the anger. If they need to focus them on me, you know, whatever it takes them to heal and get through this. I don't take it personally.
Sounds like you do.
Yeah, very thin-skinned.
There's a rally being held tomorrow called They Let Us Burn.
Right.
Is that how people should be commemorating this 1 year anniversary?
Well, I don't think so. Again, I think that there are people that are profiting off of this.
Who?
Who is making money off of this?
And that is what I find very despicable. Intentionally putting out misinformation.
What misinformation?
Oh, she doesn't like any of the criticism. Don't forget, this is the same crowd that fact-checked that there was no water in the fire hydrant. Oh, yeah, there was plenty of water. That's misinformation spread by Rick Caruso.
Intentionally profiting from social media, book deals, etc. And I think that that's unfortunate. To me, I hope that it's about healing and moving forward and getting this community back. Every single Palisadian that wants to come back, that should be the focus.
Oh, I've heard it all. Joining us to react to this is a woman we spoke with yesterday. She is a building strategist, developer, entitlement expert, and resident of Pacific Palisades who lost her home and other property in the fire. Elaine Culotti, welcome.
Well, hi. Back so soon.
Yeah, back soon, sooner than I thought. But man, when that mayor came out on television and said that the fire victims don't know what they're talking about and they're spreading misinformation, I immediately thought you may have something to say about that.
Okay. Yes, I have a lot to say. I mean, first of all, who's profiting? Who is the profiteer? I want to know who that is, Because as far as I can tell, the profiteers are the developers that are taking advantage of SB 79 and the transit district changes. Those are the people that are profiting, people that are buying up property in large bulk. And the only person that's had eyes on this is Donald Trump. Donald Trump just passed a bill saying that single-family residential R1 zoning cannot be sold to corporations. This is who's profiting, right? The only way to profit on a fire other than scamming people would be to buy real estate and develop it in some way that you're going to profit on it while someone else doesn't have the resources to build. And frankly, there's no way to do that unless you have permits. So the only people that could be profiting on the permit system would be people that are giving permits out that maybe are getting paid. I don't know, but there is no way to profit. The profit is the profit burned up. You can't even assess the value. And also, Karen Bass did not show up. I was there. I saw even Tracy Parks, who many people are upset with, got up on stage. You know, everybody that's courageous showed up. So that's upsetting. The poor fire victims.
When you look at the fire victims, and we talked about this yesterday, if your home burned down in the fire, you lost everything down to your toothbrush. And now many of you are going to see the money run out for temporary housing from your insurance policies. And my guess is the profiteering really is going to kick into high gear next month or maybe in March or April when people start getting desperate and they decide they're just going to cut bait. For her to go after you guys at this moment in time when you're really outside of right after when the fire took place, right now I would say you're at your most vulnerable because the money's going to run out. For her to take aim at you guys was inappropriate to the nth degree.
Well, obviously, I think the event she's speaking of is the They Burned Our House Down event, which is basically Spencer's event. Spencer Pratt announced he was running for mayor yesterday, so he's running against her. So there's going to be this weird opposition that's going to happen now. And I'm sure that she knew that Spencer's event was there, and maybe somebody tipped her off that he was going to announce. I mean, there could be a million reasons why she did not come to the Pacific Palisades. But at the end of the day, she's the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. She is responsible for 4 million people. That does include the people in the Pacific Palisades that had their event yesterday. And on the year anniversary, the leader of the city should have showed up, regardless of whether or not she's scared of Spencer Pratt. Like, I don't understand that. And she's also, she has a skill set and a set of competencies that she should be talking about rather than running away from the way that she was not available when the fires happened. And she should be addressing the issues one by one that are pointed to her. So in other words, I don't expect her to be defensive. I expect her to do her job. Like, I expect her to say, hey, what they said here is incorrect. This is actually what happened. If it isn't true, and if it is truly incorrect. But in the end, she's saying things like blanket statements. Blanket statements would be, that it's the problem of, or the reasoning behind this devastation, or in some way that these victims of this fire have caused any of this upon themselves. And on that note, I would suggest to anybody who is not taking care of their property because they can't, please go to your title company or to the county assessor's office and file a claim of non-abandonment. Because this is very important information. If your property is abandoned, they can start citing you for maintenance, and then they can seize the property, which would be very helpful if you were a developer and friend and you were of Newsom or a friend of the people that are allowing these developments. It would be very helpful if those properties were abandoned because you can buy them in bulk. And abandonment is very easy to get if you don't follow the rules about cleanup. And you got to get help, and you got to make sure that on your title it says that you did not abandon your property, that it is left alone because of a fire that was not of your own fault, and you are not settled at your insurance or whatever. These are important tips that solve big problems, because if you abandon that property, mark my words, they're out there to seize it. I'm sure of it.
Let's go back to her claim of misinformation, because in her world, she says that there was plenty of water in the fire hydrants. In her world, she says that her being in Ghana did not impact the city's ability to fight the fire. In her world, the fire department did not have their budget cut. And in her world, the money that was raised by Fire Aid is going to the fire victims.
Okay, so I'm not sure if she was home from Ghana, it would have helped at all. But we did not have any water in the fire hydrants. So I don't see her fighting fires. I don't see her even recognizing that there's no water. If she was there or wasn't there, it's irrelevant. What is relevant is that there was no water in the fire hydrants. There wasn't water in the fire hydrants on the 8th either, the day after, when another 1,000 structures burned. So the water situation, I think, is going to be very clear and transparent. And no matter what Karen wants to say or anybody wants to say, including Department of Water and Power, that will come out in not just video, but there's just so much evidence that there's no water. So they're not going to win on the no water thing. Now, they're going to argue that there was no water because other people were using the water, but there's tons of video on that as well. There was never really any water in those fire hydrants, and they should have been using pool and pool pumping and a bunch of other things, but there wasn't enough fire department deployed. Now, they were going to say, okay, well, the fire department was not deployed on time. They didn't stage them properly. They didn't do all kinds of things. Well, those go back directly. You can draw a straight line back to not enough funding, not enough notice, not enough management. And that is not misinformation. Where were the fire trucks? And you can talk to the fire people. And by the way, I know we want to blame everybody because it's like a machine gun, a Gatling gun, just shooting everybody to make something sick so that these fire victims can have money returned to them. That doesn't work. You have to do your homework, figure out who did what, and untangle the spaghetti. And once we get to this fire aid thing, by the time we get to this fire aid thing, they're going to untangle the spaghetti. And I think the $100 million of fire aid is the tip of the iceberg for money that's been taken out of infrastructure and resource improvement. I think it's the tip of the iceberg. I think it goes back to what we were saying yesterday, where in Minnesota, there's $8 billion, then it was $11 billion. How much? In California, it's going to be $300 billion, $400 billion. And this money that goes missing is meant for many things, including restocking these resources like water, fire, fixing trucks, and hiring people. And it goes back to things that are very, very important, which is having laws and mobilization and the people to solve these problems, like fire department. If there's no money, you live in a society that is dangerous and dirty. That's what happens when you have no money. Filth follows absolute poverty. It absolutely follows it because there's just no money to clean it up. And our city is broken. For a very wealthy city, no money has circled back. And this is Sacramento. This is Sacramento. They take the 1% sales tax on online sales. They take all of the money for all these unpaid mandates like building housing. They take all of the money that comes federally for housing and Medicare and Medi-Cal, and then they put the onus on these cities to take care of it. It's appalling to me. And then just when we think we might have a path, they cut the path. They take away the funding for police. They take away the funding for fire. They take away the funding for the city to rebuild itself. When a disaster happens, there's no disaster funds because we are living in the red. Sacramento lives in the red. They are behind. They are on their heels, not their toes. It is constant catch up because we spend too much money on things that are not approved, and they're stealing it to pay it. And that's what happened in Minnesota, and it happened here.
It seems like Mayor Bass's calculus is that politically, this story is not as damaging to her as people assume that it is, because the Palisades represents a very small percentage of the population of the city of Los Angeles as a whole. Many of the residents have moved out of Los Angeles. They moved to Malibu. They moved to Santa Monica. They moved to Orange County, Palm Springs, out of state, wherever. So they don't live here. They don't vote here anymore. And because the fires didn't impact other parts of Los Angeles, only this one part, Altadena, of course, is unincorporated, so not part of the city of Los Angeles. From her point of view, as long as she puts the narrative out that she's taking care of you and that misinformation is something that has permeated the Palisades, that the rest of the city will go, okay, well, they're upset because they lost everything, but she's doing what she can, so don't blame her too much. That seems to be what she's doing here.
Well, I think it goes back to the issue in California with voting. So, if you got 40 million people in California and only 17.5 million people paying taxes, and of the 17.5 million, about 1/2 of 1% pay 47%. That's the billionaire's tax class. So the majority of the people living in a city like Los Angeles are not just not paying taxes, they live below what's considered the poverty line in California. And those people do not vote for the same things that people in the Pacific Palisades vote for. They vote for entitlements because they've been promised something. And so for Karen Bass to remain in power, her base and the people that she needs to appease is a lot bigger base than the 25,000 people that live in the Pacific Palisades. That's something that people just don't understand. That's what we have created. We have created a voter base that dictates who runs the state that depends on entitlements. So basically, the people that we give money to be able to live, eat, pay rent, have Medicare, have Medi-Cal, get a cell phone, sanctuary city people, Medicare, Medi-Cal that's not approved by federally, all of that money, those are the people that decide who runs a city like LA, because that vote far outweighs 25,000 people in the Pacific Palisades. That's the issue. So she's going to speak to her voters. And that, by the way, is exactly why Rick Caruso lost when he ran against her and spent $110 million doing it. With one of the bigger, strategists for Democratic, he was with Bear Strategies, that's Gavin Newsom's team, and he lost. He lost because the majority of the voters in California vote for people like Karen Bass because it serves them. They get those entitlements. Now, would you want to cut your line of food off? No. Or where you're staying? No. Or your ability to vote? No. If you get to the conservative people, they're like, no, voter ID. No, you cannot get handouts. No, on Medicare to illegal aliens. No, on these things. And that does not speak to the voter base in California, period. And so every year we lose. We lose everything. If you want to change this state, read who you are voting for, stick it in AI, see how they have voted, and vote for the opposite. And maybe, if God kisses us on the head and enough people come out and use their iPhone to find out who they're voting for, maybe we can turn it around.
Elaine Culotti, building strategist, developer, entitlement expert, and resident of Pacific Palisades. Thank you so much for stopping by today.
Thank you for having me.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222 if you want to weigh in on the interview that you just heard from one of the fire victims in Pacific Palisades who is not happy about the mayor of Los Angeles alleging that they're spreading misinformation. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And next week, Randy, we're going on the road.
It's a week from tomorrow, everyone, so save the date. Join Johnny and I at the Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill, Friday, January 16th from noon to 3 in Sherman Oaks. I would say beautiful Sherman Oaks, but Nithya runs that district now. It's going to be a live broadcast of the John Phillips Show on that beautiful patio at the Pineapple Hill, where there's great food, great drinks right there on the back bar. Susan Shelley's going to join us from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association because the courts have made it easier to raise your taxes. So we need you to come by and not just hang out, but sign the petition to save Prop 13. You can work ahead of time by going to the website and doing that right now, saveprop13.com. We'll tell you more about your rights in protecting Prop 13, and we'll all be hanging out a week from tomorrow at the Pineapple Hill from noon to 3 in Sherman Oaks. We'll see you there.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
No, we're taking calls. Let's do that next hour.
Oh, okay. Works for me.
Mondo could only do one thing at a time. He can either take calls or we could do the giveaway because this is 1950 and we still do our contests on the phone.
We don't need to break them. All right, let's go ahead and go to the phones. Randy, who's up first?
Let's go to Mark in L.A. Mark, hello.
Oh, you don't want to take calls from listeners. What are you doing?
Okay, we'll do the giveaway instead.
So I worked in the Malibu fires and Palisades fires immediately after they were out, right? So I worked as an engineer up there. And there was one street. I took pictures of this. There were two 100,000-gallon water tanks. 10 feet away were three houses in a row that burned to the ground. And there was a picture of a coiled water hose, a fireman's hose, on the front yard of one of these. They were both empty, according to people I met up there. That's just one of the giant mishaps. So you have 200,000 gallons of water 10 feet from you, and you can't put your house out.
It's unbelievable that in a place like this, where fire risk is something that is always here, and the winds can whip in very strong fashion, and
Like
that
today.
the combination of those two things could be deadly and could certainly cause the loss of life, the loss of structures, the loss of animal life, everything that we see every time there's a big fire, and they still don't do anything proactively about it.
By the way, that lady you had on was outstanding. She's a razor blade. She needs to be more involved and more upfront.
Why do you think, as someone who works in this industry, why do you think this isn't a bigger scandal? Because to my eye, this is the basics. This is the nuts and bolts of what government should do. We know that when we pay our taxes, the government is supposed to provide police, fire, roads, sewage, educate the kids, those things. Yet they want to do everything else than the basics. They can't throw the ball, catch the ball, hit the ball. They want to do everything else.
Oh, sure.
And when they fail at the basics and people's lives are ruined because of it, it's like, well, nobody's perfect is the attitude.
Oh, sure. Well, I think a big part of that is you compare two headlines. One is, hey, I hired a transgender fire sheriff. That gets a bunch of clicks and likes. Or, hey, we fixed this 10-inch water pipe. No clicks. It's really that simple. It's not sexy. Infrastructure, especially repairing it and maintenance, just isn't. It's just not sexy, and that's what this city seems to be all about now.
You're right. You're right. If you spend your time fixing the equipment and making sure that we're prepared for natural disasters, then the news media is going to beat you up for not doing all the other stuff. And there's a liability that's associated with that.
Yeah, it's just like if there was a headline that said, "Hey, the reservoir is full," or we have 1,700 more diversity hires this year. That's going to get all kinds of YouTube videos and Instagram posts and all kinds of interviews. But the reservoir that's full for the fire that may or may not happen is absolutely a non-story.
I think that's also part of the reason why local government is so much better in smaller cities, because the news media doesn't cover the small cities. If you live in Duarte, or you live in Glendora, or you live in some small town that's independent, the LA Times isn't going to cover what's going on in your city unless there's a massive scandal. So if you're running for office to become a celebrity, or you're running for office because you think it'll make you the next governor or U.S. senator or whatever, then there's no point in running for office in those small towns. So the people who are attracted to those positions are people who feel like they have something to contribute to local government, which includes those things. And in those small cities, things seem to work. It's the big cities where nothing works.
I have one question for you, John. What are your odds that Karen Bass gets reelected?
Oh, hi. Hi. I think Spencer Pratt gives us a fighting chance, or at least he presents an avenue to have the debate, because now she's not going to be running unopposed. Now there's someone who's going to put their name on the ballot, who has some degree of name ID, who also has a reason for running. I think this is important, because what we see a lot in California is we see a lot of termed out politicians who are just office hopping. They're jumping from the assembly to city council to the board of supervisors. And every time they term out, they look for something new, and they need to keep it going to keep the paychecks coming in. What Spencer Pratt offers is something different. He's not hopping from office to office. He's running for office because his life was ruined by the failure of local government. He has a reason for running. He has something, or he has a platform of what he thinks and has lived through, the city of Los Angeles failing him and his community and his neighbors, and he believes that he has something he has to offer that can help fix that problem. It's been a long time since we've had someone who put their name on the ballot who has a reason, who has a legitimate reason for running outside of, this is my career and I need this office so I have a W-2. Now, that being said, while he is a celebrity, he's not like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's not even like Sonny Bono. People on X know who he is because they follow what goes on that social media platform, and he's very active there. People who watch reality TV know who he is because he was on a reality TV program. But he's not someone that has universal name ID. So he's still going to have to raise money. He's still going to have to spend money. He's still going to have to do all of the same things that candidates do so he can get his name out there and he can give himself a fighting chance. Whether or not that ultimately ends up happening, I don't know. But I'd rather have the option of it happening than seeing her run unopposed and winning out in the primary another 4 years.
Yeah, I think the idea that you mentioned, basically of skin in the game, I mean, that is so entirely evidenced by Rick Caruso. I mean, putting all his wealth and everything aside, he was like, well, there's a fire coming. I have no confidence in the LA Fire Department, so I'm going to hire my own team. And that area was saved. The center of the Palisades was saved. Whether you like his style or not, or his approach or not, the fact is when you do have skin in the game like that, you do what's necessary. And yet he couldn't get elected here. It's just absurd. Thanks,
Well,
John.
I'll tell you, and maybe it's just not in the cards. Maybe the city is just too far gone to elect anyone like him. Yeah. And you're right. He does have skin in the game. His property is in the Pacific Palisades, and that was an issue. The fires, obviously, that impacted him and his family in very serious ways. That being said, what Rick Caruso did when he ran for mayor and what he's doing now is going to be a problem, which is he's patently inauthentic. You know that Rick Caruso is a rich Republican businessman. That's what he was his entire career.
Yeah.
And then when he decides he's going to run for office, he becomes a Democrat and he hires Gavin Newsom, strategist, and he starts pretending like he's this partisan Democrat who's been a partisan Democrat forever. And just today, he was tweeting going after ICE about what happened in Minnesota. And you know privately that guy doesn't think that way. You know. You just look at him and you can tell that if you were sitting next to him on an airplane or at a bar or wherever and the subject came up, what he would say privately is totally different than what his consultants are putting out publicly. No one is buying it. Republicans are looking at that going, come on, what's wrong with you? Democrats are looking at him saying these things and saying, I don't believe you. Why would I trust you when I could have one that I know is real? And ultimately, what you become is a man without a country. And I think Rick Caruso is a man without a country. Right now, I wouldn't trust him. As much as I think he would do a good job as mayor or even maybe as governor, I don't trust him right now. Because even though his personal impulses are good, and I know that privately he would say the right things, publicly, I don't think that's what you would get. He's going to do what he has to do to navigate the political waters of what is a deep blue state. And sometimes people who are converts become the most ardent ones. I mean, I don't know about you, but the only Catholics I know who don't eat meat on Fridays are the ones who converted. They're the ones that follow all the rules. If you were a Catholic from the time you were born, then, you eat whatever it is that you're craving on a Friday. But the converts, they're the ones that have the fish fillet on Fridays over at McDonald's. And with Rick Caruso, if he were to be elected, I don't know what you'd get. The real Rick Caruso that's in private or the public Rick Caruso that's a partisan Democrat, and no one's buying that.
Quite frankly.
All right. 800-222-5222 if you want to weigh in. 1-800-222-5222. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Coming up after the news at 1, we're going live to Sacramento. The governor gave the State of the State address before the state legislature earlier today. We're going to speak with one member of the assembly who was in the room when the speech was given. But right now, we're taking your calls at 800-222-5222. And Randy, who's up next?
Let's start with Michael in San Francisco. Michael, hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I'm actually from Castro Valley, but
Close enough.
what I was wondering was why Karen Bass always changes the name. It's Los Angeles are Angelinas. Now I heard her say Palisadians, and then is there Altadenians? It sounds like it kind of trivializes in a way or something. I don't get too heavy on it, but it's kind of like comic book talk. I think maybe she kind of removes herself from reality by making these things seem a little more, these cities, and a little more trivial.
Well, I will tell you this, Michael, as someone that's born and raised in the city of Los Angeles, I don't know anybody outside of politicians that even says the term Angelinos.
Yeah, exactly. I never heard it before, and I grew up partially in L.A. as a kid, and my parents never said, we're going to stay with the Angelinians. I mean, it sounds like it's a comic book, and you know what else I don't understand is why these politicians. I mean, if I was her, and I was talking about the burn situation and victims, I'd probably almost be tearing up every time because there's so much pain and misery and suffering that is going on. And how can you, just talk with this defensive political tone and not bring some kind of humanity and empathy? In every conversation, there should be a small dose, at least, of empathy shown. But it doesn't seem to be the case. Maybe not only with her. Maybe you kind of lose that when you become a politician. I would say, okay, I'm having breakfast on Mondays for people who lost their home, and kids under 8 years old can come up to my house and we'll make them a pancake breakfast and show them, that we're doing our best. We care. They're not alone, and life is going to get better.
Well, thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Another term, by the way, that you only hear, not from politicians with this one, but if you look at a local weather forecast in Southern California, they constantly refer to us as the Southland.
Didn't Terry Ray Elmer invent that term?
Did she?
I think she did, but yes, it's not a real term. Nobody says the Southland. I'll tell you this, as a born and raised person in Los Angeles, there's only two kinds of people. People from over the hill or valley people. Let's go.
I do know that T. Ray came up with Octomom.
She did invent that. Let's go to Hector in Southgate. Hector, hello.
Yes, thank you. Love your show. No, I'd just like to say like Caruso, I don't trust him. I think he's a big phony, because he was originally a Republican, then he ran as a Democrat. I don't think he'll get anything done. I think he's just a big phony. He's and that Karen Bass, God, she's got so much crust, a lot of nerve trying to be reelected again after how she dropped the ball with the fires, They should call. She should be called a corruptalino. I'm so sick and tired of that Angelino term. It drives me insane. Yeah, the Democratic Socialist Party. Even if he becomes mayor or governor, wherever he goes, Sacramento will tie his hands up. Caruso, and the Democratic Socialist Party, in the city council, they'll control him there if he's mayor. So nothing will get done. It'll be the same old, same old. We need Mr. Hilton in charge. That's who we need. And pass
all right.
The word.
Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Cardi in San Francisco. Cardi, hello.
Hey, how you guys doing? So I have a quick question, John. With all the fires and all the residents that lost all their homes in both sites, can they not file a lawsuit against Karen Bass? What do you think?
Well, I would imagine there will be lawsuits that are filed against the city. Certainly in Altadena, there will be lawsuits filed against Southern California Edison because it looks like they were the ones that started that fire. But in the Palisades, not only do I believe that the homeowners are going to file lawsuits against the city, but I think that the arsonist who started the initial blaze that turned into the Palisades fire, he may be found not guilty at his trial because he's going to say, I'm not the one responsible for what happened in Pacific Palisades. It was the incompetence of the city of Los Angeles and the state of California, who were told by their own on-the-line firefighters that the fire wasn't fully extinguished, and they were told to move on anyway.
Well, I mean, it's total negligence, sir. We have nothing but buffoons, and if we keep voting Democrat, this is what we deserve, correct?
You have to change how you vote if you want different results.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Robert in Santa Clara. Robert, hello.
Hey, guys. Newsom was on earlier. I watched it. It was horrible. He's going to build Sites Reservoir, because he blew up the dams. He's against private equity buy-up now, but he was the ultimate facilitator of everyone leaving the state, so the BlackRock was scooping up all their property. He acts like he's not a part of this sort of and he likes actually what Trump probably blew up the thing in Iran. He's going to benefit from a lot of stuff that Trump did, but he's going out to be the anti-Trump because he wants to appear to the savior, to the new demographics that's all, like Elaine said, is expecting those entitlements they've been promised to be given to them. And, then he knows that there's some criminals here. Trump's got to be the tough kind. Newsom's going to be the moderate and the healer, but it's all on purpose.
I'm up against a hard break, so I have to run, but thank you for the call. The Fix California Hour is coming up next. We're going live to Sacramento to get reaction to the State of the State address. Don't you go anywhere.